What's up, everyone? Dave the Data Dude. Today we are going to be talking about something that's pretty important when it comes to analytics. We're going to be talking about importing files. We're going to be importing CSV files and Excel files. It's going to be sort of deep dive into some of the options that you have available when importing your files into your data frames. So let's jump right into it, and we can start talking about some of the different options you have when you're importing some data. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to import pandas as PD. And then you see here we've got two files. We've got a CSV file and a text file. These are both files that are available on my GitHub. I'm going to link them in the description so you can just follow along and do exactly what we're doing if you like. So we're going to import these. From here we can just say df for data frame equals PD for pandas read underscore CSV. And that's going to allow us to, much in the same way that we were building our own data frames in the previous videos, just use the read CSV function to read the data that's in the CSV file and then save it to our data frame variable to do analytics on. So we've already saved the file path of the CSV file, so we're just going to put in CSV file. And that's going to reach out to the GitHub file, pull it back down, and store it in this df data frame variable. So you can see here we have a list of payments for different top video games of, I think it's 2020. So it's just a list of high-paying esports games. If you were interested in esports and wanted to know which one to get into, this would be something that you might look at and see what game you would want to start playing in order to get some compensation for it. So that's the very basic way of importing your data. Just where is the file located? Read CSV file from the pandas module and set it to a data frame variable, the df variable. Now, let's say we needed to get a little bit more complicated. So we're going to look at this text file next. So this text file, we're going to do the exact same thing of data frame. We're going to just start over again, just so that we can do it, repeat our steps. Data frame, or df, equals pandas, PD, read CSV. Now, when you're talking about CSV files versus text files, they're the exact same thing in the industry. So if you have a text file, you can read it with read CSV so that it makes it a little easier to keep up. So we're going to read text file. So now we should be able to read that text file using the data from the read CSV module, or the pandas module, the read CSV function. Now you'll notice that it's the exact same data, but they're all separated by this bar. Now I did that on purpose so that you would see that not all data comes back in the, is structured the exact same way. So you need to make sure that before you import it, you know how your data is separated. Bar is a very common way that people will separate their data to keep differences like commas and things like that might mess up the CSV files or Excel files. So they use a bar instead, since most people don't use that in their everyday typing. So Pandas has a way of writing around that. So you would just simply put a comma here and say sep for separator equals bar, right? And then it will separate it out exactly like it did before with that CSV file. So that's one thing that you can do in order to, get your data into a readable format for data frame, is the sep equals however it's separated. You can have all sorts of different options for the separator. If you have tabs or things like that, it'll take care of all of that. So we're going to go ahead and look at just a couple more, and we're going to shift tab to look at all the options we have available. Now, there are a ton of options available for importing data with CSV. We're not going to look at all of them. We're just going to look at some of the ones that are kind of more important to look at. So the one that we're going to look at now is the index column. And this allows you to just make, when you import the data, what is going to be the index column. So we're going to just say game. And now our game column is the index of our data frame. And it did that automatically when we imported it. We didn't have to write any extra code to set it in any way. It just knows that when I import this, game is going to be the column name that I want to have as the index. So we're going to go ahead and look at another couple things. We're going to use, where is it? And A values. So this would be something that would be important if you wanted to fill something that you knew needed to be null. It could be anything. It could just be simply that you don't want to have any data for this particular thing. So you would just set it to null on the way in so that you don't have to code it later. So you would just say NA values equal, and then you would put in something that you would expect to be in your data that you just want to list as null. So we're just going to say 4 tournaments. All right. Did I do something wrong? Let's try one turn. Oh, tournaments, not tournament. There you go. So now it's set all of the 4 tournaments to null or NaN for no data. So now it's automatically set to null. We don't have to worry about it later. It's already taken care of in the data itself. So let's come in here, and the last thing that we're going to look at for this particular thing is we're going to use the use columns. So this is going to say what columns am I supposed to use. So we're going to say use columns equals earnings and player count. Okay, and that's saying it's invalid. Why is that invalid? Index game is invalid. Now that's because game is not included in our list of columns to use. So let's just go ahead and put that in there. And now you can see that your data frame is only has these 3 columns. Now the important thing that I want you to note is that when you use the use columns, because you're using multiple options, you have to put it in brackets. So you're making a list of columns to use. Now let's say that we only were going to use 1 column. We're going to say we're going to get rid of that games one just so that we can make it a little easier. Removing games as the index. We're going to just say, okay, well, I just want to use this 1 column. Do I still need the brackets? No. Yes, sorry. Yes, you do. So you always have to put brackets in it when you are doing your use columns, regardless of if you have multiple in there or not. Oops, excuse me. So now you can see that player count is in the use columns, and this is just a fail-safe so that you can't forget to put your columns in there if you need to only get a couple back when you're bringing them back. So just put in brackets. So that's how you read in CSV files, and now we're going to look at Excel files. So I have in my directory a Excel file. It's super basic. There's nothing fancy in it. It's just two sheets: grocery list and the shopping list, pantry list, and the pantry inventory. So it's just a real simple thing. Nothing fancy about it. You can copy it if you want. But we'll go back to our pandas and we'll look at how we can import that. So we're going to do df for data frame equals pd.read CSV, or excuse me, read Excel, and then you just simply put the name of the Excel file in this part right here. So this is basically where it's going to read the data from. So looking in here, I know that it's kitchen data, so I can just copy and paste that here, come back in here, make it full screen again. Kitchen data. Okay, and so the way that it works is by default, it will read the first sheet as your data. So we're going to look at how we can make it where it will read in different sheets. So comma, shift tab, take a look at what we have available, sheet name, right there, like the first thing. So we're just going to say sheet name equals, and I believe it's called inventory list, pantry inventory. Pantry inventory. Now I pulled back that sheet name, right? So if you have multiple sheets, this is how you would tell it to read what sheet. Okay, going forward, we're going to take a look at another couple things. The use column we talked about before, the exact same way. Use columns equals brackets. What columns do I want to use? Skip values, NA values, same exact thing. NA filter. So this is set to true, right? So what this does is it looks at your data, and you can see that this is pulled back as null, 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 right? So that row is empty, is what that is. So it says, okay, well, when it's null like that, I'm going to read it in as a null. So you would just say NA filter equals false. And now it just brings it back as a blank. So there are reasons that you might want to do that. You might want your data not to have nulls in it. You just want it to be a blank instead of a null. This is just simply how you would change it. It's a way that you can, control your data more as you go in. I believe that's all I really wanted to talk about this one. There's not anything that's too different from what we talked about with the read CSVs. No, there is not. So, all right. So that is all I wanted to talk to you today about reading your data from CSV files, from Excel files, how to separate them, how to handle nulls, how to set nulls, and how to specifically bring back only a certain amount of columns based on what you're using it for in your analytics. So like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments if you have any questions or if there's anything that you'd like to see in the future so that we can keep bringing you quality content that you enjoy.